guys, and welcome to yet another episode of Sunday's Learning Circle, brought to you by Skillex Aspire Labs in association with Swan Livelihood. So, this is a small initiative where we bring young entrepreneurs and new minds into from different walks of life, and we talk about the insights of various fields they are working upon. So today is a very special day because I present you all a very important person right straight away from Africa. He is Francis and he is working as a project manager from Entrepreneurs Connect Africa. Let me introduce you to him by connecting. Hello, sir. Hello. Hello, sir. Good evening. Hello, sir. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
I hope.
Janvi?
Yes, Jan. Yes, Jan. So I hope the internet is stable right now.
Yeah, my network is okay.
Okay. Okay, sir. So it's really a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me on your program. I'm excited about the latest updates that I have, and I'm hoping that we'll have a nice interaction today.
Yes, sure. And to our viewers, I'm going to tell you that today we have a very interesting topic to talk about, and that is how language shapes our thoughts. So, before starting it, I'd like Sir Francis to introduce himself formally.
Okay, so thank you very much, and good evening to my friends from India, Namaste, and also to all Ghanaians watching me from Ghana. I believe that there's so much that we have to share as youth and also as students. My name is Mr. Francis Apia Foucault. I started my journey as a teacher in a high school, and from there I developed this passion for writing. I'm an author, so I authored a book. My first book was called The Pursuit of Wealth. After that, I moved into a new field of thinking about thought and then how thoughts shape our perceptions about life. So my second book came out with the title, The 21st Century Mindset. So yes, my journey as an author has been an exciting one. Now currently I'm researching into how thoughts, language influence perceptions and mindset. So as a high school teacher, I am curious to explore how my research will influence my students and their learning environment. So that is what I'm doing now. So currently I'm organizing seminars and going around just sharing my knowledge with students and then also from different countries. Thank you.
Okay, so that was so great that you've written two books and that too on very interesting topics. So could you brief us more about the books and why you wrote it and what it's about?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the first book, which was about, well, it's a different topic altogether. That is talking about entrepreneurship. So we are looking at students who come out of school. Can they start something on their own? And even while they are in school, what are the opportunities that are available for them after school? So my first book is about entrepreneurship, trying to create the mindset where students don't want to depend on the government for jobs, but they have to start something on their own, and then how to build a business from an idea all the way to a success. So that is my first book, talking about how to develop the business mindset, entrepreneurship mindset, and then all the skills that is involved in business, networking, negotiation skills, and all those skills. So the first book is about entrepreneurship in a way. Then the second book is what I was talking about. That is about thoughts and perceptions and mindset. So that book is doing very well because it's online, so you can get a copy. If you're on Amazon, you can get a copy from amazon.com. If you also, I can personally share it on my page for you to see a copy of the second book. So the second book deals basically with perceptions about issues that concerns us. So we looked at if a student is growing up, the kind of mindset he's building up is because of the kind of information he has gotten over the years. So how does this information shapes his ideas and his thoughts if he goes out of the school system? So the second book talks about how to develop a very good mindset towards information gathering around you. Okay.
Okay, so that was very great to hear. And what it seems like the books are very insightful for youth, especially. Now, let's go forward with this session
Yes.
and let's start.
Okay, so thank you very much, Janvi, and welcome again. So today I'm going to discuss a very important topic. This topic was one of our programs that we did with the University of Cincinnati, where one of our lecturers shared an important discussion with us about how language shapes our thought. And for me as a teacher, it gave me a lot of insight because I have students coming in from different parts of my country. And when they come in, we normally have a language that we used to teach. But they have also developed their own perceptions because of the language that they came from or they were using when they were at home. So to be able to teach very well, it means that I need to understand their language to be able to know the kind of thoughts that they have concerning different forms of ideas that they have. So let me start by saying that this is one of our research projects. I know that a lot of our students online will also develop a habit for research. So they can go into this research and learn about how language shapes their thoughts also. They can do it for themselves or they can do it for an institution. But let me start by saying that the only thing that stops us from having a massive impact in the world is our mindset. Now, I said that the mindset or the way we see things is the source of the way we think and the way we act. In a more general sense, the way we see the world, not in terms of our visual sense of sight, but in terms of perception, understanding, and interpreting information. So basically, our thought refers to ideas, values, and information we have developed over time, and which now form the basis of the way we interpret fact. So what I want to say is that everybody has a language that they use. Maybe in India, I don't know how many dialects they have, but maybe I'm sure they have so many languages there. In Ghana here, we have a lot of languages that we use. So it means that to be able to gather information, there's a particular mode in which the information might be presented to you, and that is through language. So the language that was used to introduce the information will also shape your perception about the issue that we are talking about. So I started by saying that people communicate using a multitude of languages that vary considerably in the information that they convey. Now, research suggests that one's mother tongue does indeed mold or shape the way one thinks about many aspects of the world. So this is from research, and I know it is online. You can Google it and find out from the researcher Lera Boroditsky, an assistant professor of cognitive psychology at Stanford University, came out with this research that one's mother tongue does indeed mold or shape the way one thinks about many aspects of the world. So you can just imagine that you grew up in a particular culture with a particular language can shape the way you think. That is very important. So our way of thinking has already been shaped by the language that was used to introduce the information to us. Now it says that even including space and time, language is part of aspects of our thought. Language is part of our aspect of thought. Now let me continue. I don't know how many minutes I have so that I will know how to. Okay, so let me just flow until maybe my moderator tells me to stop. Now, languages differ from one another in innumerable ways. So it differs. Maybe in Ghana here, our language is different from what happens in Nigeria, what happens in Kenya, what happens in South Africa. It differs as you go along the region. But just because people talk differently does not necessarily mean that they think differently. That's very important. The fact that we talk differently doesn't mean that we think differently. Now, around the world, people communicate with one another using an array of languages, almost 7,000 or so. These are all languages that we have. Now, each language requires very different things from its speakers. For example, suppose I want to tell you that I saw Uncle Kwesi on 42nd Street in a town in Mayan, a language spoken in Papua New Guinea. The verb I used would reveal whether the event happened just now, yesterday, or in the distant past. So just one verb, I, can distinguish between whether the information is a present tense, a past tense, or it happened in the future. Whereas in Indonesian, the verb wouldn't even give away whether it had already happened or was still coming up. In Russian, the verb would reveal the gender of the person. So just one sentence, but in a particular language, it reveals certain things that it won't reveal in a particular culture. In Russian, it will tell you that whether the I is a male or female. Even in the Chinese language, you realize that the Chinese language is very unique. It reveals sometimes the gender of the person. Ni hao, it will tell you whether it's a male or female. Even in the writing of the characters, can determine whether it is a male or female. So languages differ from one another in innumerable ways. I've said that already. Now let's move to the next topic. I wanted to talk about, so speakers of different languages differ in how well they remember what they did. Number 2, people who think differently about space are also likely to think differently about time. Let me repeat it. People who think differently about space are also likely to think differently about time. Now, representations of time vary in many other ways around the world. So, for example, in Ghana here, the time is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm sure in India, it might be in the evening. In the UK, it might be somewhere around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. So the time differs. For example, English speakers consider the future to be ahead and the past behind. Okay. In 2010, Lyndon Miles of the University of Aberdeen in Scotland and his colleagues discovered that English speakers unconsciously sway their bodies forward when talking or thinking about the future and back when thinking about the past. But in Aymara, a language spoken in the Andes, the past is said to be in front and the future behind. So these are distinguishing factors of a language. English speakers will tell you that when they are talking about the future things, they sway their bodies forward. But in a different culture, it goes backwards. So that is one other important thing. Now, the American public is rarely impressed with such linguistic wrangling because non-agentative language could sound evasive. So it means that in a particular sense, a language can tell you whether the event happened and the kind of people that even were part of the event. Speakers of Japanese or Spanish, in contrast, are less likely to mention the agent when describing an accident event. So it means that some people will not even give you details of whatever the event, the agents were happening. It's just so that something happened and then they move on. So coming to the main event that I wanted to talk about, I'll say that not only do languages influence what we remember, but the structures of languages can make it easier or harder for us to learn new things. So we can even learn new things depending on the language that was used to introduce the information to us. And I've seen some of my students coming to class and I teach mathematics. So when I talk about a circle, can you imagine a student who has a perception of a circle to look like a square? So if he's in his mind, a circle is a square, and I'm talking about a circle, he thinks it's a square. So I need to understand the language in which the information was introduced to the child, right from the basic level, and then know how to also introduce my concept to him. Because our language builds concept. We build concept based on the language that we use. And so if the language has built a particular concept, your concept might be different from mine, but it doesn't mean that we need to disagree. It's because of the language that you were using to introduce your concept to. Okay. So for instance, because the number words in some languages reveal the underlying base 10 structure. Now I'm doing a lot of mathematics, so those who are mathematically inclined will understand for me. Okay. So I said that in some languages, reveal the underlying base 10 structure more transparently than do the number words in English. So in the Chinese language, it can tell you a particular structure of the base 10 language numbers that we are using. Maybe in English language, it might not be possible. For example, if I want to remember your phone number, your telephone number, many of us cannot remember 10 digits. Maybe I started 024331967. That's the only number I remember. But if you ask me to remember maybe a number is 004453, I might not be able to do that. It's not basically because I was not introduced to it, but because my language does not give me that information. Okay. Now, there are no troublesome things like 11 or 13 in Mandarin, for instance. Case learning those languages are able to learn the base 10 insights sooner. And depending on how many syllables the number words have, it will be easier or harder to keep a phone number in mind or to do mental calculation. Now, I read a book which talked about how the Asians are able to memorize numbers faster than other children in other parts of the world, which means that the Asian children are introduced to number system very early. And because it is part of their language, they are able to learn it faster. So if you bring it to a particular culture, they will not be able to memorize the numbers quicker. Okay. Now, let's move on. Language can even affect how children quickly figure out whether they are male or female. In 1983, Alexander Grion of the University of Michigan compared 3 groups of children or kids growing up in Hebrew, English, or Finnish as their native language. Hebrew marks gender prophylactically. Even the word you is different depending on gender. Now, in the Finnish language, it is different. In the English language, but Hebrews will be able to mark out the gender of the child right from birth and right from the beginning. Okay. These are just some of the many fascinating findings of cross-linguistic differences in cognition. Now, but how do we know whether differences in language create differences in thought? That is what I want to talk about. Or the other way around. The answer in terms is out. It is both ways. The way we think influences the way we speak. Now, if I've not been to India before, I might not know the culture. So whatever I've heard about India is what I'm going to use to talk about what I know. Because I've never been there before. I know about what I see on TV. I know what I watch on the movies. But I've not been part of the culture. So my thoughts will be different. Maybe someone who has not been to Africa before will also be using what he has learned over the years. And that is going to be based on what he has been taught. So what we are saying is that the influence also goes the other way. The past decade has seen a host of ingenious demonstrations establishing that language indeed plays a causal role in shaping our cognition. Now, studies have shown that changing how people talk changes how they think. So, teaching people new colors or new words, for instance, changes their ability to discriminate colors. So I have a young child who is 4 years old. Now, if I teach him colors, he's able to distinguish colors, and he's even able to know which one is warm color, which one is even a cold color. All these things are part of the process that we have to go through. So you can even teach children through colors how to identify feelings. Let's say warm feeling, a hot feeling, in that order. Now, and teaching people a new way of talking about time gives them a new way of thinking about it. Very important. Now, another way to get at this question is to study people who are fluent in 2 languages. So we are talking about bilingual. I have a student who could speak French. He was a science student, but he could speak French and he could speak English. Now he's in a university in Russia doing medicine, and he has also learned the Russian language. So a student like this, when he goes into a chemistry class where he's being asked to mention the names of certain chemicals, the student is able to identify the Russian genealogy. If the name is coming from the Russian sector, he's able to understand it better. If it's a French person, he's able to understand it better than the student who only understands language through English. So what you are saying is that a student who has learned 2 or more languages is able to appreciate concept better than someone who is only one language minded, because he has a bilingual form of understanding things. Now, 2 sets of findings published in 2010 demonstrate that even something as fundamental as who you like and do not like depends on the language in which you are asked. Depends on the language you are asked. Language also appears to be involved in many more aspects of our mental lives than scientists had previously supposed. Now, people rely on language even when doing simple things like distinguishing patches of color, counting dots on a screen, or orienting in a small way. A hallmark feature of human intelligence is its adaptability. Now, the ability to invent and rearrange conceptions of the world to suit changing goals and accomplishments. One consequence of this is flexibility is great diversity of languages that have emerged from the globe or around the globe. So it means that now through this interaction, I'm able to learn something from my colleagues in India. They're able to learn something from Africa. They're able to learn something from other parts of the world, and that is building flexibility and adaptability. Each provides its own cognitive toolkit and escapulates the knowledge and worldview developed over thousands of years within a culture. Now, each contains a way of perceiving, categorizing, and making meaning in the world. So I'll stop here, and then maybe if there are any suggestions or questions, I'll take them for now.
Okay, so whatever you told right now is very informative, and I believe it's quite true because I take myself as a bilingual person, because since my early childhood I have been comfortable with both English and Hindi, plus my home language, that's from one of the states that's called Himachal Pradesh. So I know 3
Okay.
languages, and yes, sometimes I do get confused because knowing 3 languages, you are thinking in a language, you're speaking in a language, and you are hearing something else. So
Yes.
yeah, so I want to ask you, like, for a country like India and for a country like yours, I know that it's very diverse as compared to other English nations. So
Yeah.
if we want to change our mindsets and kind of thinking that we have right now, I believe after hearing that we have to change what language we communicate in. So how do we do that? Because language is just made and we cannot alter it right now. So if we want to change our thoughts and our thinkings, what do we do?
Okay, so thank you very much, Janvi. So as you have said, many of us have now gotten this information that when we're growing up, there was a particular language that was used to introduce the information to us. And so far, that has shaped our perception and our information and our thought. And that is why going forward, we want to look at, can we develop it? Is it possible for us to, get research into this area? Because it's a research that will give us the solution that we want, or that will give us our findings. So how do we research into these areas and know even whether there's a possibility to be able to identify whether somebody can, get more information through the language that he has already developed? Because he has already developed it and he's already using it. That's one thing. Language is something that we use every day. So if he's using it every day, how will it be possible for him to leave it and then start something new? And so that is a challenge now, and I believe that our research will give us more enlightenment into those areas.
Okay, so I'd like to ask our viewers if they have any question or they have to say anything, please comment it on the comment box. And till that time, I even read an article on this topic that we're talking about. Like in British nations, we say that, say in case we go to a museum and I broke a vase. Okay, so the British people would say that the vase broke, the vase broke, and the American people would rather use a sentence like I broke this thing, or he broke that thing. So this creates a very
Yeah.
different perspective of both the person, because one is talking about that it just broke, and when I am not naming the person who broke it, I will not remember it in near future. But on the other hand, when I am just emphasizing that he broke it, I broke it, I'll remember it for a longer time. You know. So how is that gonna affect our future? Because our
So yeah, let me help you with it. We are working with this is language we are looking at. So it means that the British have their own way of language, which makes it easier for them, and they have used it over time, and now they are more comfortable with that. Now the Americans will also have their own version to whatever, and like you are saying, the British will not even give you the agent in the action that took place. Okay, let me say the Americans will just tell you without giving you the agent who did what and what time what happened. Maybe Derek came to this place and did that. The British might give you such further details. And it helps us a lot, because sometimes maybe in investigations, or maybe in the news, when you are listening to a news, maybe from an American station, they will give you details, or sometimes they will tell you more. In other words, in a particular culture, they might not even tell you all these details. You have to figure it out yourselves. So to answer your question, these are development that we are looking at, and we are hoping that many researchers will also come out with their findings. Because as I said, it is based on country specific or language specific. And if you are not careful, you might what you do here might be different from what you do in another country. Sometimes maybe in India it might be different. When I come to Ghana, I might have a different research sample size to work with. So we have to do more of it. And like you said, it's like a toolkit. When you have it, and then how you work with it depends on the kind of sample size you are working with. So different things happen at different locations altogether.
And as you said that you are a teacher, and when you teach maths and you say that any equation on circles, and the child thinks it in his imagination about it being a square and reconciling it that way. So how do you deal with it? Because I know it's very difficult in the early childhood days, when you are like, something that's not actually true, but you cannot explain it how that child is wrong.
Yes, I think I'm a teacher myself. So yes, so unfortunately, before the children come to me, they are already in high school. So it means they are around 15 years, and I was not there when they were starting their basic introduction to concept in maths and concept in English and all those things. But whoever is taking the child through that process, that's what I'm talking about, the early childhood type of the part of the child's life, should be conscious that the language that they present information to shapes the particular concept or perception of the child. Of course, don't forget that the children are mostly at home with their parents. So if their parents also have a particular language they are using to introduce to the child, it will also influence whatever they say at school. Because when he comes home, maybe the greetings that they use in the house will influence the kind of thought that he has when he goes out, about respect, about empathy, about teamwork, about everything starts from the home. So the language will be building up onto there when he goes back to school. Now, when it comes to me, I am trying to decipher what kind of concept he has already built. so that when I'm presenting mine, it doesn't become like a boundary, because it will also be a boundary for me if he's not able to understand my concept, because he's not understanding what I'm saying, or he's thinking in a particular way from what I am trying to say. Let me put it that way. So I'm teaching circles. The child thinks it's a square, and he's trying to see it as a square. Meanwhile, I want him to see it a particular way. And this creates a bit of confusion in the child's mind. The child is really not able to understand. And you might even think that the child doesn't even understand, or he's not serious in the class, or he doesn't pay attention. But it might be a possibility of the language that you are using to present the information and already what his concept or perception has been. So teachers have a lot of, or let me say educators have a lot of work to do to be able to understand language and how it influences even our curriculum, or let me say our teaching and learning skills that we use in the classroom.
Yes, that is indeed right. I also read about. I saw a documentary that the Americans are trying to research on the early childhood development, because early childhood plays a very important role in showcasing what he is gonna achieve in the future. So I saw there that they just the voice is echoing a lot. Give me a moment. Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah. Okay. So they are researching a lot upon how they can, insinuate various thoughts, various languages, and as much as the activities they can, like from the very starting their dance classes, their activities, and they're teaching about plants and everything, and they're teaching a lot of languages to the children. But I believe that somehow that puts a lot of pressure on that child, because he just like 4, 5, 6 years old, and we're like gushing him with responsibilities of learning so that he'll be successful one day.
Yeah, I think of course it depends on the curriculum that is working in a particular country, and how the curriculum is structured, so that it doesn't put so much pressure or so much into the child's mind, and the child really doesn't have a lot of time to absorb all this information or process the information into his mind. Because even though his mind is developing, it's not everything that he can process at that particular time. You need to give him some time, and then I believe that we need to introduce the little concept at a time to the child. Once the child, and even if possible, as the child progresses, the performance should also be progressive. So if he moves from stage 1 to stage 2, the child has a document that tells what he has learned over the period and what the teacher needs to do next, so that it doesn't become like everything is a buffet of everything coming together, introducing at a particular place. And I think a challenge is our education system. We need to work on it and then know exactly how to present information at what age, so that it doesn't become like too much for the child, and then he can't really understand or can't really absorb them. And many children already get frustrated in their learning process, because it seems like learning becomes a difficult task for them. But learning should not be a difficult task, it should be enjoyable. It's learning. So it's like if he's starting to walk, he takes a few steps, he falls, he continues again. But here we make it look like if he doesn't perform, it means that he's short of the we have set our own benchmark, and we are expecting them to get to that benchmark. If they are not able to get it, we feel like they are failures, but they are not.
Right. So what are you doing for this in your place?
Okay, so we have already developed some, like I said, we are trying to research more and then bring out our findings. We are also looking at developing concepts of e-learning, where it becomes easier to train the youth on certain concepts that they need, or certain skills that they need to have before they even enter into the world of work. So we are moving in, it is a gradual steps. It's a gradual process. Sometimes you need to involve government, you need to involve the education ministry and all the departments involved. But once we have started, we realize that, okay, there's a room for improvement. And as we go along, we'll be making our research and our findings available. And then we'll make sure that at least starting with education, it can also move into other field of interest.
Okay, and you are the project manager of Entrepreneurs Connect in Africa. So,
Yes,
what
yes,
does
please.
what does the work include?
Okay, so with Entrepreneurs Connect Africa, like the name suggests, we are entrepreneurs or a group of entrepreneurs who have come together to network among ourselves to find out whether there's a possibility. Because COVID has taught us a lot of lessons. And one of the lessons is that whatever I'm doing as an entrepreneur, a friend might also have a particular skill that might be beneficial to me. So whatever I'm doing, maybe I'm trying to sell a product. The other entrepreneur may have a delivery service so that we can connect our ideas together and then continue with our work. So Entrepreneurs Connect Africa is trying to connect entrepreneurs across Africa continent, trying to see whether there are opportunities for us to learn from and what are the challenges that we can learn from each other. By the grace of God now, internet has become the way of communication, so we can communicate with one another. I have a friend in Zambia, I talk to Mwala. I have another friend in South Africa that we connect with, and so many other connections. So it is all about the entrepreneurial spirit, trying to see whether there's a possibility to create that platform for entrepreneurs to be able to start seeing opportunities around them. Because we have a lot of opportunities that we can develop, but unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to do that. But we want to start that drive so that all over the world, we can have even ideas coming from India, and then we can share the ideas. What can be practical, maybe we can also develop it in India, because COVID has taught us a lot of lessons. It's a pandemic that has affected everybody, and everybody is learning new things to be able to survive.
Yes, the pandemic has proven both advantages and disadvantages, because though we've lost a lot of
Yeah,
lives and jobs, but we've also
yeah,
gained a new perspective as to how to approach life and how to go on with things, being together and learning more things continuously. So
yeah.
I guess that is it from my side. Do you have any questions or anything you'd like to share?
The only question I have, which I wanted all of my listeners to ponder about, is how do we know whether differences in language create differences in thought? Or so I wanted us to ponder about this question, that how do we know whether differences in language create differences in our thoughts also? So that if I'm reading maybe a book from an English speaking country, it will shape the way I think about it, about the kind of information I'm getting. And how does it also influence my decisions going forward? So that I'll know how to perceive information nowadays and know how to approach issues concerning the language that I am using, and then also trying to present it to somebody else. Because if I'm presenting something to maybe a foreigner, the language can also be a barrier, so that I will know how to go about it and not create a division between each other. So at the end, they want to bring peace to the world, and through that, we are able to also bring a lot of influence to our community.
Okay, so that was very insightful. And before ending this conversation, I like to ask this last question that I have. So when I
Okay.
talk about India, we have languages like every 10 kilometers our language changes. So we have like a
Yeah.
diverse bunch of languages, and I believe what is different, makes us different from the rest of the world, is the warmth that this language brings to us. the connection that it builds, especially like we talk about common languages like Punjabi or any language from the mountains. So in Africa, since it's diverse too, what does your language makes it different from the rest of the world?
The language makes it different because it even influences the kind of food. If you go to a particular place, let's say the Ashantis, their food is different. They like fufu. If you come to the south, which is the coastal part, they also have their own. The Ghans have their own food. The kinky that they eat also is very. So the language differs from each, but it also brings us together because as you try to learn another person's language, you also try to tolerate their ideas also. So when you hear somebody saying a particular word, you know that in his language this is what it means, but to your language it might mean offensive. But it doesn't mean that you should take offense about it. It is even helpful to you to be able to learn that language so that you can be able to socialize or communicate well with them. So our languages vary a lot. When you go to the north, we have there's so many languages there, which maybe if you come to the south, you might not even understand what they are saying. But we try to learn each other's language and then try to move on as one nation. Of course, we are one country with one common color and destiny. So everything goes with us. Even if you cross the boundary we are even surrounded by French-speaking countries. So when you go to Cote d'Ivoire, they might speak French. But we always ask ourselves that in the midst of crisis, is it not these French friends that will be running to? So it means that we must also try to live in peace with them so that in any time we need them, they'll be available. And when they also need us, we'll also be available. So if you go around the country, in Africa, we have so many different languages. But every time we try to find a way to socialize and then be together.
Yes, and that is the true sportsmanship spirit, I'd say, because though languages are different, but that is no reason for us to, be diverse and different and not talk to each other, but rather build this friendship and build this understanding with each other. So before ending, I'd like to ask our viewers if they want to say anything or have any question for Francis, please go ahead. Thank you so much, Swan. Great to have you here too.
Thank you very much, Janvi, and my greetings to everybody who has been on the call. Thank you so much. Hope to see you another time. And please let's learn to always stay safe and then protect ourselves. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Francis, for connecting today. I know you're quite busy. Plus, this pandemic has took a toll on every one of us and our
Yes,
mental
yes.
health.
But sure.
Okay, so we will definitely connect in future to share more insights on different topics again because it has surely proved a very insightful session. Thank you so much for connecting.
Thank you very much. I'm always available and I always thank you very much for this opportunity.
Okay, and so with this, we end today's Sunday's learning session presented to you by SkillX Aspire Labs with Francis. So today was a very insightful session about how languages shape our thoughts. Thank you, Swan, and thank you all the viewers for connecting. Bye bye. Take care.
Thank